Okay, let me start the class because we are running out of time. So now what was the thing is in the JDBC ODBC driver, it actually translates the JDBC into an ODBC API, and that ODBC in turn called to an databases when the database queries used to be converted into the ODBC, and again ODBC translates that to JDBC, and JDBC in turn operate within Java. Okay, so this is a very big process that every time each call, like if you want to insert one data, then it need to be go with the ODBC then and to the database and so on. So the translation do take certain time. Okay, the translation from Java to a native programming language, so it takes certain time. So this, in the type 1 driver, this was a bit uh, time consuming. Okay, so that's the reason the second type of drivers has introduced, that is type 2 driver. Okay, so in the type 2 driver, the name of this is native API partially Java. Okay, so partially Java in the sense they had tried to write a Java program. Okay, so which to have certain APIs, which these APIs are used to call to database. Okay, so what is API? I will tell you. This is nothing but this is a package. Okay, like a SQL package will be there, with the help of which we able to operate, we are able to communicate to our database now. So now what happened in this is it does not forward the JDBC calls to ODBC driver. Okay, instead it translate. Okay, what does it do? It translate JDBC calls to database specific calls. Okay, so this Java translates this, okay, to because DB will also be written in some programming languages, right? Okay, so DB actually generally written in C and C++. Okay, so directly the Java API used to communicate to the uh, database specific native API. So here also we do have some API in between. Okay, this API do contact with an database actually. So here it will translate that to that API, and that API try to communicate to the database. So that is the reason it is a native API. Okay, here it is a native API. Okay, which is again a platform dependent. Okay, so every time this native APIs should be of a specific type. Suppose it is running on some operating system, for example, it should support that operating system. Okay, and Java is platform independent now. Okay, this is also a platform dependent version where this every ODBC has to be correspondent to the particular operating system. Okay, because this is at the end of the operating system, that where the program is running. Suppose the program is running on operating system of Linux. Okay, suppose it's running on Windows, it is running on Solaris. Okay, it's running on Mac. Okay, so it should be platform independent, but in this case the ODBC calls will generally be Linux, it have its own version, Windows it has its own version, and so on. That is the reason it is a platform dependent. Similarly, this will also be called as a platform dependent because this database APIs should also be supported with the native operating system. Okay, so it is bit faster. Why? Because it doesn't have an interface called as an ODBC in between. Okay, we don't have ODBC here, so that is the reason it's bit faster when compared to the earlier one. So that is only the thing is like every operating system should has to have its own native API to communicate with the database. So if I go with different operating system, then I can't assure that it can be a platform independent. So we have to reach the platform independent thing. That's the reason this types of drivers has been modified timely. Okay, the third type is middleware. This is all about theoretical concept. In the next class, we'll see about programming, on how to do programming on these things. That is pure Java. This is type 3 driver. Okay. So the middleware is nothing but it tries to have a middleware server using a JDBC independent network protocol. So if you see this everything is a dependent. Okay, the databases are dependent upon the operating system. So what it tries to do is now we write a Java program. Java program try to communicate with a server. Okay, this server is actually acting like a middleware. Okay, which actually it's a network independent protocol. Okay, so it means that it takes all the calls, that all the calls are nothing but these calls are for insert, update or delete and so on, all the calls. Okay, and it tries to make an platform independent version of that. Okay, so this is database independent, database independent network protocol here. But only the drawback here is every time I need to connect to the server, again the server in turns connect to an databases. Okay, so this operating system is a Linux, for example, this database is running. Okay, another operating system is Windows. Okay, on this the database is running. So any kind of database this particular middleware server can able to call. So here uh, if you observe that it is trying to achieve a concept of platform independent, because a Java program should has to communicate with all type of databases, whether it is running on any kind of operating system. So to achieve that, uh, this drivers are being trying to modified. Okay, the medieval server act like a gateway. Okay, so this is acting like a gateway for us now. Okay, which is trying to accept the multiple which is trying to access the multiple databases and can use different database specific protocols to connect different database servers. Means here generally this databases are actually can be referred to as a database servers now. Okay, so it is trying to build a network on an it is trying to build an connectivity upon a network actually. So there is a requirement of network over here. There should be a network that need to be connect with a different database servers. Okay, so this database server is like an SQL database server. Okay, so SQL database servers are generally of Microsoft. Okay, those are having Azure cloud platform. I think you have registered for Azure cloud platform, most of you. So take a version of that. Okay, take a student copy uh, and try to register, or at some time it will also ask you for an credit card. Okay, because I told you that college is not supporting for this, like it should have EDU. Our college mail ID should have an extension called as an EDU, but our extension is lloyd.ac.in. So that is the reason it's not making a student account for us. You can go with .ac.in and you can register with a credit card, or you can try with a GCP, Google Cloud Platform, with your mail ID, or you try for AWS, Amazon Web Services. All these are similar kind of platforms. Just the hosting, how you host the uh, your application get to differ, because most of the cases DevOps and all these things have been running on almost all the clouds. Okay, so take a student evaluation copy or student version and try to upload your programs into that and try to check how it can be possible. Or you can also go with GitHub to have a student there in the github. In the GitHub we do have student community. Okay, so GitHub, it just GitHub student. So you get a GitHub version of student. There you have student program. You'll also get an free versions of clouds, and many services are provided in GitHub for students. Okay, you try for this also. So this is the right time to grasp all these things. So what I'm talking about, like this databases now can be database server, which in turns connect with the help of a middleware server. So this acts like a gateway. So it is trying to do make an platform independent version of the JDBC. Okay, so the last one is type 4 driver, but only the drawback here is it should be an network and it should run on the network. Are you able to understand? Please try to make a note of all these points. Okay, last one is pure Java driver. Pure Java driver. This is of type 4. Okay, the names are very important. You try to remember these names, because with the name you can able to identify what type of driver it is. Okay. So the name here itself is telling that in the database also we do have an Java related API. Okay, and here also we do have a Java API. So there is no translations. Okay, when there is no translation, we can think this about like a platform independent. Okay, when it is a platform independent, means this Java API. Now where this Java API will come, means most of the databases will provide us with some APIs, which we call it as a vendor API to connect to the databases. Okay, they provide different versions of APIs, like they provide with the Java, they provide with C++, they provide with Python. Okay, they provide with many programming languages. So why should they will provide these things? Because they want to make the database popular, they want the databases to be used by most of the applications. Hence the reason they create APIs to communicate with the databases. Okay, so similarly they also provide with the Java API. So before proceeding to execution of JDBC programs, we actually going with a pure Java driver, such that we have to first of all install this Java API in our NetBeans. Okay, which comes with a different version of databases. Suppose if you are using Oracle, Oracle will provide you with an API to connect with Oracle database. Okay, that API will be in a Java then. Okay, so where will be this? This can be find. This can be find in your Oracle website. You can download from the download session. From the section, you can download this API. Okay, this API is in a Java. So here actually what this API in our application level is, only here we do have interfaces. Okay, interfaces will be there here in our at our end, at application level end, and the implementation will be there with the provided API by the vendor. Okay, so vendor is providing some API. So when you make an when you are trying to call some method, then the method implementation will not be there with us. The implementation part will be provided by this vendor. Who is a vendor? Like Oracle is a vendor. Okay, and in MySQL is also a version of Oracle. Now Oracle buy this MySQL. MySQL is again an open source databases. Okay, we do have open source and non-open source database. You know the basic difference between open source and non-open source. Now try to search that what type of databases are there and how many open source databases are there, and which are the communities those who are supporting this MySQL or open source databases. Okay, so there are communities which supports the open source, and they try to modify it according to the time and so on. Okay, so this actually adds into a profile, but previously uh, from Microsoft, I think, what was his name, he given a lecture on GitHub. I don't recall. About or what?
Sanat Abral.
Yeah, Sanat Abral. That's fine. So he given an example, like in an open source community, if you resolve some bug, okay, if you're trying to resolve some bug in an open source community, and that thing you can put up in your resume. Okay, hope you recall. So that open source communities are there, which are very active communities, those who try to resolve the problems in open source. So now the world is moving towards that open source concept. Okay, so we do have open source, non-open source databases, like SQL Server. Okay, which I work on, which is of Microsoft. Okay, all these are licensed version. So after the completion of this class, in the next class I will ask you what is the difference between open source softwares and non-open source, or we call it as an licensed version. Okay, try to figure out the difference and let me know this. Okay, then we'll see the practicals hands-on on this, that how we can connect to a specific database and what are the requirements are there, we'll see in the next class. Okay, so is this clear for you? Is this clear for you?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so actually in the type 2 driver, in the type 3 driver, we do have two architectures. Okay, we do have two architectures that I will tell you. Like it can be a two-tier architecture or it can be a three-tier architecture. So how the two-tier and three-tier is like, I will tell you. Like in the type 3, we have first architecture like two-tier. Okay, we do have Java application and we do have network here, and that network in turn try to connect to the database with the help of a request and response object. Okay, this will be a database server now. Okay. So here it will make a request and it will send a response via a network. Okay, so there is only like two tiers here. Okay, so generally this referred to as an two tier architecture. This one is okay, so one tier and second tier. Okay, here Java application we are not concentrating on this. Okay, so in the second type architecture, this is a three tier. Okay, in the three tier architecture, it do have a middleware server. Okay, so in the middleware server, we do have Java program which have a network. Okay, so in the network again we do have a middleware server which we are talking about, middleware server which try to translate all the calls from Java to some other languages. Then again we have a network. Okay, and there comes at last a database. Okay, so this can be again in database server, so this is like a DB. So all the calls is via this middleware. That is the reason it is a three tier architecture. If you observe this is like tier 1 and tier 2. Okay, so here this can be referred to as an tier 3 over here. Okay, so here this is actually network is not a tier actually, sorry for that. This is tier 1 and this is tier 2. Okay, this is the front end and this is the back end. Here we do have a middleware that acting like an tier 2 here, and this is a tier 1 and this is a tier 3. This is a three tier architecture where you have a middleware server. Okay, so there are two versions of that in type 3, but what we are using in our programs are the pure Java driver where we have to download the APIs of a specific vendor. Okay. So we'll see how to connect to Oracle, how to connect to MySQL, how to get connected with all other types of databases. Then what are the requirements, we'll see in the next class.